What are some historical events that are incredibly difficult to believe, yet undeniably true? The Battle of Summer still blows my mind to this day. A task force of dinky destroyers, destroyer escorts, and small escort carriers faced down the wrath of the Japanese Center Force fleet. This was headed by the Yamato, the largest battleship ever put to sea. And yet, despite all the superior firepower of the Japanese in this battle, they lost. They turned tail and ran, primarily due to the efforts of the USS Johnston and the USS Samuel B. Roberts. To add to the legend, the USS Samuel B. Roberts is now the deepest positively identified shipwreck. The mysterious disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 in 2014 is a modern-day enigma that has left the world baffled. Efforts spanning vast stretches of ocean, the lack of concrete answers, and the multitude of theories, ranging from mechanical failure to deliberate sabotage, have fueled intense speculation and debate. There was an Egyptian pharaoh named Akhenaten who tried to convert Egyptian religion into monotheism. Obviously he was hated, and the Egyptians erased any trace that he ever existed. Eventually we found traces of a city he was trying to build in the late 1800s. That overall this means that for over 3,000 years, the ancient Egyptians were successful in completely erasing any trace that one of their pharaohs existed. The Battle of Castle Itta, in the closing days of World War II, ESS. In this instance to protect a bunch of French VIP prisoners, among them being Olympic tennis player Jean Baratra and Prime Minister Paul Reynaud, who had been imprisoned there since 1943 or 1944. A terrific example of this is the Holocaust. The Germans killed millions upon millions of Jews, Slavic people, Romani, disabled people, LGBTQIAs, people of color, and others who didn't fit their idea of what a person should be like. The German leadership at the time considered such people to be less than human and thought their existence causes degradation of the genes of real thank you. The sound made by the Krakatoa volcanic eruption in 1883 was so loud it ruptured eardrums of people 40 miles away, traveled around the world 4 times, and was clearly heard 3,000 miles away. That's like you standing in New York and hearing a sound from San Francisco. The earth rang like a bell for days, and it changed the weather all over the globe for years. The Bush family in general. Ken Government in the 30s, whose son was nearly eaten by a cannibal in World War II, who later became the director of the CIA, became the president, conducted possibly the most successful war in American history. His son then became president in an election draw that was helped decided by his brother. For me, as Halley's Comet appeared in the sky, and Mark Twain was born in 1835. The comet moves in a 75 or 76-year orbit, and, as it neared Earth once again, Twain said, "I came in with Halley's Comet, and I expect to go out with it." Sure enough, he died on April 21, 1910, just as the comet made its next pass within sight of Earth. The dancing plague in France. Sly BC, instead of quarantining the dancer, they had a main stage made, had musicians playing for them, and had people who were not affected dance with them, making them dance faster when they dropped down. It was said that 15 people died a day. We landed on the moon multiple times, and there's visible evidence of our landings, albeit visible with a telescope. Artifacts the Apollo astronauts left on the moon include the contents of their bowel movements, and all are considered historical artifacts and are not to be disturbed according to the US government. Only 66 years separate the creation of the first plane by the Wright brothers 1903 and the first landing on the moon 1969. Someone could have heard about the first plane ever at 10 years old, and at 76 years old see the moon landing on national TV. The Christmas armistice. It never happened again. Any war, anywhere. But for one day, one Christmas, a very long time ago, everyone just put down their weapons and started to sing. Everybody just stopped. Everyone was just kind. My mind at John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two of the most influential architects of the United States, died on the same day, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1826. Not an event, but still astonishing. I am good friends with Ernie LaPointe, who is Sitting Bull's great-grandson. Ernie has personally known people in his life who personally knew Sitting Bill when he was alive. The molasses flood, a huge container of molasses burst and flooded the local area. People drowned in it. Imagine drowning in sugary goop ... Note I ... Yeah, org wiki great molasses flood. Saginaw Bay is a meteor crater from an impact whose icy debris created the Carolina Bays, a bunch of oval-shaped ponds along the east coast whose oval points all point at Saginaw Bay. The Allies in WW using inflatable tanks to fool the Nazis into thinking they would be attacked from certain locations, diverting attention away from Normandy just before D-Day. The three guys that went underneath the Chernobyl reactor after it went into meltdown to shut off the reactor water, preventing a nuclear explosion. They saved all of Europe. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, the second and third U.S. presidents, both died on July 4, 1826, 50 years to the day after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I don't know how many times I've been kept up at night thinking about the Great Emu War in Australia. The military fought against an army of flightless birds and lost. Dodger Hanks Incident, Battle of Tsushima. No way anyone is that incompetent. Edit Bank, not Hanks. Edit to Dogger, not Dodger. Like, damn, that during the Austro-Prussian War, Liechtenstein sent an army of 80 men to battle, and at the end of the war the army returned with 81 men. The US government murdered civilians at Wounded Knee, Kent State, Ruby Ridge, Waco, and yet people still trust them for some reason. The epidemic of 1518 in Strasbourg. About 400 people danced in the streets of the city, without rest for several days in a row. The Union General William Sherman committed atrocities in order to take the state of Georgia away from the Confederacy. The first native the Pilgrims talked to when they landed spoke English, and had crossed the Atlantic several times. McUltra, for some reason it's rarely a talking point despite being one of the most horrifying events in US history. There have been several close calls to World War III happening, but it hasn't.